Good morning as always. I say it's my pleasure to have Karen Onan in and Michelle Thomas. They are from the Economic Development, Community Development Group, basically, the ECR. Wait, let me do it, Karen. ECRDC. That's the big umbrella, and then they handle the transportation piece. That's the way I'll put it.
Okay.
All right, we're going to go that route, and we'd like to have them come in and chat and let us know what's been going on. So first of all, ladies, good morning.
Good morning,
Good
Robin.
morning.
Thank you for having us today.
We haven't had a chance to chat for a little while here. What do you want to start with?
Well, I'd just like to update people on what we have going on. A lot of what we're doing with the East Central Regional Transportation Coordinating Council comes from what we learned from the Local Human Services Transit Coordination Plan, which is done every 5 years, and we just did it this year. It's not completely completed as far as getting it back and forth from MnDOT and all of that, but we have some priorities that we're working on that we learned from the public and our meetings about what is really needed in our region. And the two that rise to the top have been the shared vehicles, and we'll get into that in a minute, and hubs. When we talk about shared vehicles, we're talking about the possibility, and this is something we want to start working on very soon, of getting a grant to purchase a van, an ADA accessible van, maybe two or maybe more, in a county or a few counties, and kind of depending on the votes, who got voted in for commissioners and
sure.
such in each of the counties. We'll see who's interested in doing this. We could get a grant to purchase one or two vehicles. We would allow then the volunteer drivers to drive those vehicles instead of their own vehicles and be true volunteers. And that way, you're not putting any wear and tear on your car. You get to drive a new minivan. I think that volunteers would be more apt to want to volunteer if they could pick up a van at a specific location, say a library or whatever, and then take it to take people places. That's one of the first things that we're really working on. And we are looking for volunteers that may be interested in doing that. And I just want to quickly mention our website is eastcentraltransit.com, and there you can go to our Facebook page, that little icon there. It's probably the easiest way to get to the Facebook page. Send us your thoughts. We want to hear from you. Would you be interested in volunteering and doing something like that? Where would you be interested in doing it in our region, in the counties in our region? So that would be really helpful. You can also email us too. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what your situation is, what your issues are, whether you'd like to be involved with us, whether you'd like to be a volunteer. We have a lot happening here.
The other piece to that is volunteer drivers and shared vehicles go kind of hand in hand. And so the other piece to the shared vehicles is we know that faith communities, churches, nonprofit organizations, other community organizations have vehicles for certain specific things for their own organization, but then other times during the week they're sitting idle. And so is there an opportunity, for example, churches often have a van that they go to pick up the older members of their community for church services on Sunday and maybe a community dinner on a Wednesday, but then the vehicle doesn't get used the rest of the week. Is there an opportunity for us to share that vehicle and take older adults in our community to doctor appointments or to the grocery store, have a volunteer driver come in and drive that vehicle? So we want to open the conversation to the possibility of that as well, because we want to use our resources to their capacity.
And MCOTA, which is the Minnesota Council on Transportation Access, has a lot of subsidiaries, I don't know if that's the right word, underneath them. And one of them is the issues of sharing vehicles and the insurance. And
That's just what I was going to ask.
Yeah. I know that Tim Schmutzer is involved in that subcommittee to try to figure out how to
iron out those barriers.
Right.
Because we know there are a lot of
That's
barriers.
the word.
But we have to start the conversation somewhere. And so if you know of those types of situations, let's just have a conversation about it and kind of start the ball rolling.
So you have Timber Trails and you have Phase and you have Arrowhead. So they all have things happening. So this need where you'd have volunteers and these vehicles would be a whole separate kind of situation.
Above and beyond.
That's what I'm wondering.
However,
Yeah.
those public transportation providers that you listed, Arrowhead, Timber Trails, TriCap in Mille Lacs County, they all have volunteer driver programs. They're all struggling to find volunteer drivers at the moment, but they do have programs under their public transit system. And so depending on the area and who they have as volunteers, those all kind of operate a little bit differently, but they are in existence now. So,
And also I want to mention that volunteer drivers can go anywhere. You don't need to stay within the parameters that MnDOT has set, and the public service providers have regulations of how far they can go, where a volunteer driver can go a lot further.
cross-county lines,
Cross-county
for example.
lines, yeah. That's a big reason why we need the volunteer drivers to get up into northern Mille Lacs County and upper Kanabec and outer Kanabec County, because Timber Trails can only go 10 miles outside of the Mora city limits. That's as far as they can go with their public buses. So if you need to get further, we need volunteer drivers. If you like to drive, just get in touch with us or get in touch with Timber Trails or wherever you want. If you're in Mille Lacs County, you get in touch with TriCap, and if you're in Chisago, Pine, or Isanti counties, you're going to want to get in touch with Arrowhead. But you can always go through us. Mm-hmm. We don't have Lyft in our area because they require that you have a larger population. You can become a Lyft driver if you want to. You just go to the Lyft app and sign up, but it's just not as prevalent here. Of course, St. Cloud has Lyft drivers. They're big. But it doesn't help us over here, unfortunately.
So that's where this would fill in that void then, is what you're talking about. Get the grant, get the vehicle.
Yeah.
This would be the fill-in, so
right.
to speak.
And we'll be working with the public service providers to get the grant, but, it may be underneath the counties, or it might be underneath, a nonprofit, or it may be under the public service providers, So there's some options there. It's not just getting the vehicle, it's the maintenance and the care.
All of it. And like you said, the concern about, liability, you have to have insurance. There's always that piece of it too.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
that's
just making it
getting
work.
worked out. Again, those issues are at the state, and they're addressing those because they know it's a need. I just want to make a plug also for volunteer drivers. If you have 2 hours a week, 15 hours a week, 30 hours a week, you can drive as little or as much as you'd like. You can drive within an area that you're comfortable with. You can drive to the city if you want to take spend the whole day. And we hear lots and lots of stories of these volunteer drivers becoming very good friends because they often pick up the same people. And so they get to know, the 80-year-old woman who likes to go to the grocery store as an outing every week, or the veteran who needs to go once a month to the VA. It's very rewarding. It's very easy volunteer service that you can do for your community.
And you feel good about yourself. And if we get these vans going, it's just another door that's opening. And if they're ADA compliant, that way we'll be able to take the veteran that needs to, if he or she in a wheelchair, over there. Because I know a lot of the veterans' vehicles do not have the lifts inside of them. So
most volunteer drivers, if they're driving their own vehicle,
don't
are
either.
not equipped that
But
way.
some
either.
do, and that's another thing. If you've got a vehicle that's ADA compliant, Our other topic is the hubs, and we named one micro hubs, meaning very small. Just a place where public transit or the volunteer drivers can stop and then take people a little further. So, you would be on Timber Trails and you need to get to St. Cloud. How do you get to St. Cloud? Well, you'd have to hop on a bus with TriCap, get over to Malacca, but even over there, it's not all connected. So if we could hear from people, like I said, through our Facebook page, through our emails, through phone calls, please let us know if you have a need to get down to the cities and the public service provider can't do that. We need to know so that we can then make a case for this that would help us to get these little hubs in place. whether it's once a month that maybe they stop at that hub or once a week. We just see that that is another big need to be able to go further.
The feedback that would be helpful to us would be, where do you want to go and how often do you want to go? And how many people? Would there be multiple people traveling with you? Is it, shopping? Maybe a senior facility wants to go shopping in St. Cloud once a month or as an outing. Maybe you just like to go to Forest Lake and you can't get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of feedback would be very helpful for us.
Exactly. And the other thing I just want to say that if the public transit providers don't have enough riders, they don't keep going with their public service. They will cut that route out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to be doing everything we can, and we are, to let folks know what is available out there. We've got some new maps that are getting put into place because there's a lot out there that isn't being utilized. And so some routes are going to get dropped. So if you could get in touch with us, like I said, through the Facebook page, our information, both Michelle and my information, are on the Facebook page and on the website. It's eastcentraltransit.com.
As always, it's a pleasure to have both Karen and Michelle in. And we want to also thank our friends at MnDOT for partially funding this get-together.